Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us at the Hopenning episode number 40. Fran and I created the Hopenning, a place where hope is happening. And we are so happy that you are joining us today to get more hope into your life. Fran and I are both in Alberta, Canada. Fran is somewhere in northern Alberta, so close to where Santa Claus is, I believe. And I am in Calgary. Fran is a veteran teacher. She's been teaching elementary school age children for the last 34 years. And she does rapid transformational therapy for part-time. I do rapid transformation therapy full-time. And I am also a singer. So when I don't sing, I work. And when I don't work, I sing. And we have a lovely guest with us today. And Fran will have the honors of introducing her.
And it is a special honor for me to welcome Jackie Woodside. Jackie has been on my heart for many, many months, ever since I took her Conscious Living Summit last year. She is a USA Today and four-time Amazon best-selling author. She's a TEDx speaker and an international trainer and a professional coach. She is the founder of the Curriculum for Conscious Living and the Conscious Living Summit, which is coming up right away, November 5th. So she teaches and trains coaches around the world. She has been featured on television shows with Jack Cornfield, Don Miguel Ruiz, and Marianne Williamson, as well as Michael Beckworth and Daniel Segal have also done educational summits with her. Her expertise today is largely sought after as a teacher and speaker. She's a certified professional coach, licensed psychotherapist with 30 years of experience in both fields. And her books, Younger Self Letters, Money Vibe, Calming the Chaos, Time for Change, Managing the Inevitable, and Inc. magazine selected the book Calming the Chaos is one of their top 10 motivational books. Welcome, Jackie.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that lovely introduction. Yeah, you've covered a lot of ground. So it's so nice to be here with both of you. And I love what you're doing, Hopenning, that what we're having in our world is a rising of hope happening. So that's really lovely. Thank you for having me on as your guest.
It's so wonderful to be here with you, Jackie. We are honored. And I'm just going to fire away with conscious living. Conscious living.
Yeah. Conscious living is my thing. I have a conscious living podcast. I have a conscious living summit. I have the curriculum for conscious living, and I'm learning more every day about what it means to live life consciously.
So I would love to ask you more about exactly what that means.
What
does it mean to live your life consciously?
It's a deep and broad topic, right? So we could be on this podcast for the next week and probably not cover the fullness of that question. So it means many, many things in many areas of life. Are you living consciously in every area of life? Are you aware of your beliefs, emotions, attitudes, and thoughts about money, about your marriage, about your health, about time, about how you manage your schedule, about your breath, about how you eat, about food, about substances, about what you consume for media? Are you awake and aware of what you are thinking and feeling, and then the beliefs that underlie it? And are you able to disempower thoughts, emotions, and beliefs that don't serve you in order to live life at a higher vibration?
Well, my number one question, and it always is, tell me how you got here. What were the mitigating forces in your life that got you to this point where you're this 30-year psychotherapist, and then you made the switch over to the conscious living, 10 years ago or so?
No, probably closer to 15 years ago. So I was a coach. I was a therapist and coach kind of overlapping. So I was a therapist for 30 years, and I've also been a coach for 30 years, but obviously not 30 years of therapy and then 30 years of coaching. I overlapped both of those fields for about 10 years. I'm sorry, about 20 years. And about 15 years ago, I made the shift. I closed my psychotherapy practice and went full-time into thought leadership around conscious living and being a consciousness teacher. So the path and the journey to get myself there, you know, honestly, my early years were just filled with chaos and trauma. I can't, I've like survived everything. You know, I had a very difficult early childhood where my father and his brother all died within 9 months, 3 months of each other. My mother had to deal with all of that, being a young widow with 3 kids and a high school education. So my mom remarried. Both my parents were alcoholics growing up. I was sexually abused. I was physically abused. So my young life was a hot mess. Therefore, I became a therapist. You know, I was smart enough to know I'd better figure out some way to survive all that craziness. So my young adult life, I was a hot mess. I was depressed, anxious. I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, major depressive episode, adult attention deficit disorder, PTSD. I was on all kinds of medications and all kinds of therapy. I went to 12-step programs for my addictions. I was also an addict. So I was a hot freaking mess. And by the grace of God, I found truth principles, both through the coaching profession and through metaphysics, spiritual metaphysics in the Unity Church faith is where I actually came upon this. And so it was, so I started, you know, getting healthy and not being such a hot mess. And as I got healthier, psychotherapy was less compelling to me. And I knew there was this urge for me to be teaching and speaking to people about their energy, their vibration, and their consciousness. And so the turning point of actually closing my psychotherapy practice, which was the mainstay of my financial well-being and my reputation and my identity. And I'd been a social worker for many years, a clinical social worker, and I'm fluent in sign language. So I was a clinical social worker in the deaf community, which is even, you know, more of a thing because kind of everybody knew me as that. So, but I had this growing calling within me to write and teach and speak. And I was sitting in a Unity Church service on a beautiful Sunday fall morning. The sun was coming in, and the little sprite of a minister was just extraordinarily talented. You gave a sermon where she used a quote from the Gnostic Gospel of Thomas that says, if you bring forth what is within you will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you will destroy you. And I thought, that's what's happening to me. I'm losing my edge, my vitality, my, you know, just kind of my passion for life and living, because I was doing this thing that I knew was no longer my calling, being a psychotherapist. And I loved it. It was fun. It was a fine way to make a living. It's a great profession. I helped a lot of people. I was very good at it. I'm fluent in sign language. I mean, so I had a specialty niche. It was a great field. So it was nothing about the field. It was that I really had this calling to do something different, bigger, a bigger platform. So it was literally that day that I said, I've got to do this. That was in the fall. By Christmas time, I had decided I was going to close my practice and go out, you know, kind of full-time doing this. By January, I had my first book contract to publish my first book. So it was a very rapid process, and it was difficult the first year. My God, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, because my whole identity was tied up in being a clinician in the deaf community and earning good money. And my earning went right through the floor for the first couple of years. And then it's taken time, and I've built that back up. So I'm certainly glad I did the change. And if I would have known it was going to be that hard, I probably wouldn't have done it. But I followed my calling, and here I am. I'm no longer a hot mess. I say I went from hot mess to happy and blessed. And so that's kind of the path that led me here.
Thanks. Yeah, it's beautiful. I didn't know that you could sign.
I'm fluent in sign language. Yeah, my spouse is deaf, actually. And I do a tremendous amount of leadership work and executive coaching in American Sign Language. I've delivered keynote addresses in front of hundreds of people in sign language. So I'm very, very fluent. Deaf people often think I'm deaf.
That's what a tremendous gift that you can give to that population.
Yeah. No, it really feels, I do transformational work in the deaf community, and I don't need to use a sign language interpreter. And it's incredibly gratifying to see people get transformational work in their own language and the difference that it makes. It's incredibly gratifying work.
Absolutely amazing. So one thing about that I'm really curious about, and I know there's a lot of material on that by you on YouTube specifically, is for our audience specifically, can you explain to us the difference between consciousness and awareness?
Yes. So thank you for asking. It's one of my favorite topics, actually, because the field of consciousness studies is so new that it's rapidly evolving. I did a TED Talk way back in 2012 on creating conscious communities. And because I was going to be writing about creating conscious communities, I went and studied a bunch of other consciousness teachers. And what I saw is that nobody has the same definition of consciousness. So I was like, well, that's kind of weird, but the field is in early development, so that makes sense. And then it was kind of freeing, because if nobody really has like the definition, I can just use mine because I liked mine better. Thank you very much. So I define consciousness. Let's start there. So I define consciousness as the vibratory pattern around you that gets created by your inner world of beliefs, emotions, attitudes, and thoughts. So it's your inner world, your beliefs, emotions, attitudes, and thoughts that create a vibration. That's science. That's not philosophy. And if you notice that those 4 words create an acronym, BEAT. So I say your beat creates your vibe that creates your life. So I define consciousness as the vibratory pattern created by your inner world. And just a colloquial example of this is I'm sure you guys have both done this. You walk into, say, a Christmas party, or you walk into a conference, a professional conference, and what do, right? You walk in, especially if you're by yourself, you kind of stand back and you scan the room. And you kind of, you check people out from a distance, and almost unconsciously, but you'll be aware of it when I say it, you'll look at somebody over there and you'll be like, oh, I don't know what it is about them, but I like their vibe. And then you might look at somebody else over on the other side of the room and you're like, I don't know what it is about that guy. I just don't like his vibe. Or maybe you've chatted with someone for 5 or 10 minutes and very quickly you're like, oh my God, I love this person. They've got such a great vibe. So we use this phrase all the time colloquially, and now science is backing it up. In fact, in about 3 years ago, Scientific American Journal wrote an article that said the hippies were right. It is all about your vibe. Right? That was in Scientific American. And it was a wonderful article about this truth that your vibratory pattern of how you think and feel creates an external vibration around you that people can literally pick up on and feel. Right? You're at the office and you like walk into a conference room, or you walk into a meeting room, and there's like, we use this phrase, the tension was so tight I could cut it with a knife, right? Or so thick, I'm sorry, the tension was so thick I could cut it with a knife. What is that? That's vibe. That's vibration. So that is creative. So where you are energetically in terms of your consciousness and your vibration is where you will join with life itself at the energetic matrix of life. So if you're a person who lives in what I call survival consciousness, like, oh, it's so hard and I can't, and here's why, and it's your fault, and I'm the victim. If that's how you live, you will draw people and circumstances toward you that validate that perception. And the more you raise up in consciousness, recognizing that there are universal laws, and the more that I align with them and raise my thoughts and my emotions, it's astounding how your life will transform. So that's my definition of consciousness. And there's so much more I can say about it, but just to move on. And my definition of awareness is your capacity to observe your consciousness. So it's this weird thing, right? How we can have a thought process and then we can observe ourselves having the thought process, right? The devil and the angel on the shoulder, right? So you can have a thought process and then you can observe the thought process. That observing mind of your thoughts is what I call awareness. Your ability to observe what your thoughts are doing, your ability to observe your emotions, and then change them, which is a process I call use your mind to train your brain. That's a whole other conversation. But so awareness is your ability to observe your consciousness. It gives you access to understanding and uncovering, and therefore elevating the consciousness that you live in.
I've got two things. Well, as you were talking about the science behind it, right? That now it's even in the science journals about that we create us like a wave. I think about way back when they used to create images of like Christ or the saints or whatever, and they would have a halo,
A
right?
halo around
A
them.
halo
Yes.
of light, right? That's
Yes.
exactly what you're saying. That's the energy that we're emitting, right? And our energy, our halo of light can either be really dark or
Yeah.
it can be bright.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, gosh, now it's left me. But the other thing was super important too. It'll
It
come
will
back
come
to me.
back.
It'll come
It will
back
come
to me,
back to you. I promise you it
Jackie.
will.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
So
just to say
actually,
a
what?
bit more about the science of it, like if we hook you up to an electroencephalogram and we show you images of, violence and destruction and war, that will affect your brain waves and how your brain is emitting energy. And then if we show you pictures of sunsets and oceans and people holding babies, your brain waves will change. That is the consciousness. That vibration is what I call the consciousness. Same is true of your heart chakra, hooking yourself up to an EKG and changing your breathing patterns, changing your thoughts. The vibration of your heart chakra, which science tells us is 5,000 times stronger than the vibration of your thoughts, which I find utterly astounding. And I really want to dive into that more. So the emotional realm, in terms of vibratory pattern, is stronger than your thought realm. We kind of focus a lot on the realm of thought, but it's actually the realm of emotion that is more powerful.
The thoughts will lead to the emotion, though, right?
I think it's both. This has been an argument in the field of psychology forever. Is it that your thoughts create your emotions or that your emotions create your thoughts? I've spent years observing this in myself and in my psychotherapy patients and my coaching clients, and I honestly can see evidence of both.
Interesting. That's very interesting. So I work a lot with emotional eating clients. And one thing that I always tell them is if you wake up and you feel really bad about yourself, you will weigh heavier. You do not weigh yourself on those days. So it's important for me that they need to feel really good. Because even that emotion weighs heavier.
It's 5,000 times heavier than their
Yeah.
thoughts.
Right, exactly. So I would love to get more explanations of you of like real life emotions and how that creates a certain light or dark vibration.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit self-explanatory. When you feel down, when you feel blue, when you're kind of down in the dumps, your whole countenance is withdrawn. So I think about energy and vibration as either expansive or contracted. Right. So energy is contracted when your thoughts and emotions are down and low. Even again, you can see it in the body. See, but people think, well, I can't help it. That's just the way I feel. Or I can't help it. That's just the way I think. Neuroscience has proven today that you actually can, by using your mind to train your brain, you actually can change how you think and how you feel. Now, I've taught this to thousands of people, and sometimes after one session, people will come back to me like, well, I tried it, Jackie, and it didn't work. And I was like, well, what do you mean it didn't work? Well, I went right back to feeling that way. I was like, how many years have you felt that way before trying this 1 week's worth of exercise? So it's not like you go and you do a little, this or a little of that. And I can tell you what some of the practices are if you're interested, but it's not like you go and you change, 50 years of neuropatterning and emotional conditioning with, 2 or 3 sessions of a journaling exercise or, mind treatment. It does not change like that. You literally, like if you've walked through a forest 1,000 times, right down the same, you're cutting through from your house over to the store, you will wear a path. The same exact thing happens in your brain. When you have the same thoughts over and over and over again, they create pathways in your brain that make it super easy. See, the brain always wants to reduce how much energy it expends. So it creates pathways, just like walking through the back forest. You want to create a path. Now, if you want to go a different way and there's no path, what do you have to do? You have to cut it down and you have to step over things and get out of the tall grass because it's really hard to do. That's what your brain has to do in order to create new neural pathways. And it's hard. So I tell my coaching clients, if you go through a week of this type of exercise and you're not a little bit tired and irritable, I will know you're not doing the work. And they're like, what? And I was like, well, and then I explained to them, because your brain is actually going to have to work so differently in order to start changing how you habitually think and respond and feel, that is going to exhaust you. And they come back the next week like, and it's good that I predict that, because then they're actually curious and they want to be like, is she right? Am I actually going to be? They'll come back like, oh, that was exhausting. And I was so irritable and you need a session with my spouse. That was awful.
So, Jackie, so do you train the consciousness part first and then the awareness of what I'm thinking?
Yeah. So in all of my courses, I have courses on time, I have courses on money, I have courses on life, and I have courses on leadership. In all of them, I start with the very practical, external, concrete things, because and then all the while so things like in my life course, I have a circle of life satisfaction inventory, and I have a strong foundation inventory, and I have people go assess their life and how satisfied are you, and what do your support structures look like, and how are your finances. Very concrete things. But the whole time they're working on that, I'm talking about energy and vibration, so that by the time we actually get to addressing consciousness, and they're increasing their awareness, right? They're increasing their awareness. You see, these type of concrete inventories and getting to work on the physical realm, I call it the backdoor approach to raising consciousness, because all of a sudden they're paying attention to things that they've had their head in the sand about for months and sometimes years. They're dealing with that broken relationship. They're dealing with that. I can't even tell you. I had this one client. I have so many stories to tell. Like one client who had bought like the 5 gallons of paint to repaint the kitchen, and they had sat in the corner of the kitchen for 3 years, the gallons of paint. Another one was going to redo the shower in one of her bathrooms. So she bought the stall, like the insert for the stand-up shower. It had sat in her living room for like 2 years. She was hanging plants on it because she bought it, but she never got around to installing it. So I'm really not kidding that people like just start living this way, like they put their head in the sand. So all of that work, it's like she had to like wake up to the fact that she had a shower stall in her living room, right? So these are exaggerated examples, but they are true real life examples. But we all have the shower in the living room of our lives, right? We all go unconscious, whether it's about a health issue or a relationship issue, a financial issue. So this whole piece of work, I always start with just concrete awareness and assessment of the way your life is, because it raises people's awareness. When you raise awareness, you start raising consciousness before I even talk about it. Mm-hmm. So then when I actually get to the more subtle esoteric work of consciousness and awareness and the inner domain, people are more able to see it, hear it, and respond to it in a positive way.
So when you do this, so you give them a big inventory, like it's like what, 100 questions or?
And, in my life design course, it's 125. It's just a checklist, 125 items in 5 areas of life.
Right. And then it's like probably a Likert scale of some kind where they're really high financially, but really low in relationship
Right.
issues.
So then they get a score in each of the 5 areas and they start getting to work on that. And then that kind of maps onto the satisfaction, the circle of satisfaction, which is, I think 8 different areas of life. And they can kind of see if their foundation score in finance is low, their satisfaction in finance is also low. If their foundation score in relationships is low, their satisfaction score. So they map onto each other. And then people call some goals on how to get to work in raising both their foundation and their satisfaction.
Kitty came to join.
Yeah, I was just thinking. That's why my door is closed. Otherwise,
yeah. Oh, she's been on many a podcast with me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So I'm very curious then about what is covered in the Consciousness Summit.
Yeah, so I have the the Conscious Living Summit is coming up November 5th. I don't know if this podcast will air before then. I hope it will.
Yes, it will.
Okay. So it airs on November 5th, and I've brought together 20 really world-renowned experts, New York Times bestselling authors, the highest nonfiction author in Japan, highest selling nonfiction author in Japan, lots of extraordinary people who are consciousness teachers, coaches, authors, speakers. And I simply ask them the question, what does it mean to you to live a conscious life, and how can people do it better? And I've never had the same conversation twice. People bring their own unique thoughts and spin to it. It is an extraordinary, extraordinary series of conversations with people that are just steeped in living this every single day. And I often say at the end of the interviews, you know, I guess I consider myself an expert on human beings. I've done nothing else my entire career, therapist and coach. That's all I've ever done in my entire career. And yet every time I have these interviews, I feel like there's so much I have to learn.
That's amazing. I definitely will be watching that.
Oh, it's really, really profound. And some people have a very kind of spiritual approach to it. Some people are more just kind of coaching, practical approach to it. Some people go into the neuroscience. It's so good.
Jackie, you do touch a lot on all of those things, though. You do touch on the spiritual, you touch on the neuroscience, you touch on the practical, you touch on the people who they don't have to belong to any, organized anything. But the work that I've seen you do, and the podcast that you've been on, you've got a wealth of human background, right?
I do, yeah.
Like, you're extremely knowledgeable in so many different fields. It's quite it's such an honor to have you here.
Thank you. You know, it's really funny, Fran. People will hear me give a talk or teach a class or something, and they'll come up to me after and they're like, "Oh my God, you're so smart." And I just laugh. I'm like, "Don't follow me home," because there's like, I'm really not that smart. I'm not a good cook. I don't know fine wines. I don't know finance. I can't fix anything. I can't build anything. Somebody else cleans my house. Like, I don't know anything other than human beings, but I know human beings really, really well. Like, it has been my passion and my love affair to understand various aspects of the human condition, from spirituality to relationships to communication. That's a whole other, I have lots of courses that I do a lot of leadership work. So I do a lot of courses on communication, conscious communication, what it takes to be an effective communicator. It is stunning to me how people don't understand that what people need, if you want to accomplish something in a dialogue, is they need to feel like they're right and that you're agreeing with them. And, so I teach all these strategies, and sometimes people will be like, isn't that manipulative? Because I won't disagree with people. I'll just be like, yeah, okay, that's fine. That's a good idea. Because I have a goal in mind. And they're like, well, isn't that manipulative? And I say, well, it's not manipulative if I have a benevolent goal. So it's benevolent. Perhaps it's, a process I used to call psychotherapy, a process of benevolent manipulation. Like, I have a goal of where I want the conversation to go, or in therapy, I had a goal of where I wanted that person's healing and recovery to go. I don't want to just sit there like, yeah, that's really awful. Yeah, that was really bad. Yeah, that must have been awful. Like, how is that going to move people? And I know with the power of empathy and connection and feeling seen and feeling heard, that does have healing components to it. But I feel like it's my job as a coach and as a trainer, and I used to feel this as a therapist, to just be with and one step ahead in this beautiful dance. Just, I'm with them and I'm just one step ahead, so they can grasp onto the, like, she's got me, she's got this, and I've got somebody with me that can also lead and guide me. And I just think that's a really important piece of helping people through the transformation process.
I agree. So you say that you are one of the happiest people you know, and you say you've got like the best marriage of anybody you know, right?
I may beat you in that one.
Very rarely do people say that to me, because I always say, oh, I'm the happiest married person that I know. And I've had only a handful of people be like, no, now I am.
No, you can count me in.
say that to
Yes.
me. I love it, but I can literally count on all my fingers how many times people have actually said that back to me. Most people roll their eyes and I'm like, yeah, lucky bitch.
But you went from 0 to 60.
I did. I was even in, I was so far down on the relational scale. I was in a battering relationship once. In my mid to late 20s, I was in a battering relationship. Ended up during that time falling downstairs at work, wintertime, New England. I slipped downstairs and then had to go to one of those doc in a box, kind of a walk-in clinic. And the guy at the walk-in clinic did the exam. I had fallen downstairs at work. And then the guy did the exam on me, called me into his office, and he looked at me and he said, I've got a daughter about your age. And if someone was doing to my daughter what I know someone is doing to you, I would want someone to speak up. I was stunned. I was absolutely stunned because I had fallen downstairs. So that's all that was in my head. And then I went in to the HR office, excuse me, at work, and they had to fill out paperwork, and I gave them the doctor's note and all this stuff because I was out of work for a bit. And she's like, okay, and the bruise on your cheek and the scratch on your neck. And I was like, yeah, that's not the accident. So that was a real wake up call for me, and actually was one of the impetus that helped me get out of that. So anyway, to say like that's how far down I was in like the just crazy making, dysfunctional, really unhealthy. I grew up with a lot of physical abuse. So of course I followed that pattern, got into relationships where I replicated that. And, today I'm happy 22 years. My spouse and I have been together 22 years. And I really am the happiest married person that I know. So, and, people ask us, what's your secret? How do you guys do it? And I would say a couple of things that we both subscribe to. One is whoever feels the strongest about something wins. That's it. No discussion. Whoever feels the strongest about something wins. And the other one is because I would rather be committed to my spouse's happiness than to me getting my way. We are more committed to each other's happiness than we are to being right or getting our way. So an example of this, years ago, my spouse has a friend. My spouse's name is Heather. She's deaf. She has a friend who's a deaf Indian man, and he was marrying a hearing Indian man. So they were going to have a deaf hearing, gay Indian wedding. Okay, like not exactly something you get the opportunity to see very often. It happened to be on the same weekend that we have a family tradition that we go to open our summer cottage. It was Memorial Day weekend. And Memorial Day weekend is like, I live for Memorial Day weekend. I count the days from January 1st to Memorial Day weekend. It is like, I love my summers up at our summer cottage. So we get the invitation and I looked and I was like, oh, wow, bummer. She's like, what's the matter? I was like, well, it's Memorial Day weekend. She's like, yeah. I was like, well, it's Memorial Day weekend. Of course, that means we're not going. She's like, no, we're going. And I was like, we're not going. Oh, no, we're going. And I'm like, oh no, like, because we both clearly feel strong about this, right? So then it was like, okay, fine. Like, go ahead, you go. And our son is Nathan. As Nathan and I will go do the family thing at the river. Go ahead, go to the wedding. And I was really okay with that, like really go. I wanted to be supportive. And she's like, oh no, Nathan's coming with me. Nathan's going to that wedding. And I was like, what? So I was teaching a class that night called Living a Transcendent Life, all about living in the highest realms of energetic consciousness and what that takes. And I told them that story. And I told them that story from the perspective of what's wrong with her? And as I'm telling the story and then winding it down, I'm looking around the room and I see the faces. And they all know that we have these rules. They've heard about my marriage. Whoever feels the strongest about something wins, more committed to each other's happiness than we are to being right or getting our way. And I looked at their faces and I said, I'm wrong, aren't I? And they're all like, you're wrong. You're not following your rules. This is a once in a lifetime experience. Like, so I went home that night and I was like, honey, I'm sorry. I was wrong. we'll go to the wedding. And it was delightful.
I was just going to say that was probably one of the most
it was
memorable experiences.
Extraordinary. It was like everything about it was extraordinary. I mean, both sets of parents, very traditional Indian parents who planned when their boys were born that they would or have arranged marriages and traditional Indian, and to see like what the parents had to go through and the love of the community and just the beautiful rituals of an Indian wedding and the two men, it was extraordinary.
Probably a lot of healing in that as well.
Yeah, it was really very beautiful. Anyway, so that's just an example of whoever feels the strongest wins. Like we're just not going to argue about things. And generally it's just something like I can kind of tell that she feels stronger. What's hard is I have a strong personality and she doesn't. She's more like easygoing than I am. So I get my way a lot. And sometimes she'll be like, I just need to develop more opinions.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I also want to touch a little bit on your teachings around money.
Yeah, great topic.
So we get a lot of clients who come to us for what they call money blocks. And to me, there's always a money story in somewhere in their childhood. Like mom was always scared when she went to the grocery store that she's going to run out of money. Now I'm always scared and things like that, you know. So tell me how you help people overcoming that.
So yeah, I have a few programs around money. I have a course called Money Mindset for Challenging Times. I have a course called Money Vibe. I have a course called Money Mindset Mastery. And fundamentally, what people don't understand is that it's not your actions that drive your financial life. And it's not even your thoughts that drive your financial life. What drives your financial experience is what you believe about yourself and money and life. So I do a lot of exercises. Hold on one second. I do a lot of exercises geared toward helping people discern, clear, and then transform their beliefs about money and life and themselves, while simultaneously having them clean up the often really messy financial situations that they're living in. So I do both the linear earth plane and the etheric spiritual plane. And I teach people they have to live at the intersection of their consciousness and their behaviors. So raising they're getting their head out of the sand about their finances, I teach strategies to pay off debt. And I don't know if that's in my Money Vibe course, I think. I don't remember. It's in my Money Mastery course, but I don't remember which one it's in. So I teach strategies to pay off debt. I teach strategies to help people change their beliefs about money, and I help them clean up their financial messes and then create a vision, a 3 to 5 year vision for where their financial life's going to go, and create goals around that, but goals that are aligned with the values and the vision that they have for themselves, and also in their realm of believability. I don't want somebody who's earning $50,000 a year to tell me in 3 years from now, I'm going to be earning 3 million. Sure. Is it possible? Yes. Is that in your vibratory pattern of belief? Probably not. And if it's not in their vibratory pattern of belief, they will go right back down that spiral. So I help people understand that, like what's in their vibratory pattern of belief.
And can you raise that vibratory pattern of belief to a higher level?
Oh yeah, that's the whole point of my teaching, is
like
to
even
raise
higher than that. Yes.
What'd you say?
Even higher than that, if they had a $50,000.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's how I went from homeless to 7 figures. Yeah. I mean, I was literally homeless during that whole messy breakup and the domestic violence and all of that. Not long after that, I was literally homeless, couch surfing for a time and at hotels and, staying with my parents. Like I was in a really rough shape financially. And now I have multiple 7 figures, 3 waterfront homes and, a beautiful financial life. Our son has special needs. So we have a legacy fund for our son to be sure that he'll be taken care of. So, and I did all of that in just the span of one lifetime. So it's not, I'm not dead yet. So I'm still, we're still continuing to grow. So yeah, absolutely. People can.
It's amazing to see the example though. It's amazing to hear that.
Yeah. You know, people look at me and sometimes they don't believe it. And I'm like, what, do you want me to pull out my banking statements from the 1980s and 90s and show you how bad it was? Or but people who've known me a long time, it was funny actually. Some friends of mine from college came to hear me speak at a Unity church where I delivered the sermon, and they've known me through all of this and what a hot mess I was. And they came up to me after the sermon and they just looked at me and their faces were just astounded. And they're like, oh my God, who knew? Like,
Right.
who knew that you had that in you? And I was like, I'm glad that you came. I'm glad that you got to see that.
That's absolutely incredible.
So we talked about vibration a bit and how certain beliefs and emotions and the beat, right?
Beliefs,
Beliefs,
emotions,
emotions,
attitudes, and
attitudes, and
thoughts. Yeah.
thoughts create your vibration, and that we can raise our vibration through work. It's actually a work. It's
You
not,
got to put in the time.
you've got to put in the time, and you've got to put in the time to change your awareness as well, because you can do all this work to just be working on your consciousness to raise your vibration, and then suddenly something happens, right? And it's like you slide right back into the old pattern. So have you got some practical strategies here? Because for me, triggers, right? There's those triggers, and I find myself sliding back, and I watch myself sliding, about the awareness, right? I'm watching myself sliding back into my own pattern, and it takes a bit to get back out of there and to say, hey, let's not judge, let's not jump to assumptions, let's not take things so personal, right? Because it's just so easy to slide back.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the things that people don't understand is that this is a lifelong process. It's not like if you showered today,
Yeah.
chances are you're going to shower again tomorrow or maybe the next day, but you're going to take another shower. If you go to the gym to build muscle, you don't go to the gym once. Building muscle is a lifelong process. If you take a yoga class because you want to increase your balance and flexibility, you don't go to yoga once. You go to yoga for your whole life because your body changes. And as your body changes, you need different things with balance and flexibility. As your body ages, you need different things with strength, right? So we don't do anything. None of these practices that we have, we do them once and then think it's over. But somehow it's like, well, it didn't work for me. Right. That's because you have to work it. And I joke that I'll be teaching these courses in the day hall of the nursing home someday because it's just, I get that it's a lifelong practice. So yes, I can give you practical strategies and things that people can do, but I can't say that by saying you're only going to do this. You'll be doing these practices I'm about to teach you. I do them almost every day.
Exactly. So every day, what do you do to stay solid in your ability to look at the situation, stand back, realize what's going on and your own part in it, and not to get involved or to unplug yourself, right? To untether yourself from drama or from the bad vibrations around you.
Yeah. I will say that as you really focus and commit to living a high vibration life, you don't have a lot of that messiness and drama. So my life, as you can tell, was a lot of messiness and drama back in the day. And I just don't have that any longer. I'm like a drama-free zone. So that's a blessing of doing this work over time. It really is. And that's not to say that shit doesn't happen in my life. Shit happens. I just don't have problems. I have circumstances. I have circumstances. Everybody is going to have circumstances. Whether you have problems or not is contingent on the consciousness with which you greet your circumstances. So I just don't greet my circumstances with the level of consciousness that would ever have me define them as a problem.
So to me, is just the most amazing example of that consciousness.
Right.
That problem is going to come, but in a conscious way, I can navigate through it and just rise above it. To me, exactly. I always think of an analogy of a soap opera on TV. If I don't like it, I turn it off.
Yeah, right.
And that's how I feel about life that happens. I'm
Right.
not going to go emotionally and engage in it. I'm like, nope, turning it off. That's not for me.
Right.
Because I don't like that vibration. I don't like that,
Yeah.
what did you say, expansive and contractive vibration. I don't like that feeling. So
Right.
I need to change it. And that's what I love about your work, because I think we become more sensitive to that the longer we stay involved in it.
Yeah, yeah. And it doesn't change overnight. I mean, again, this is
No,
what I
it
really
doesn't.
want people to understand. So let me address some practices that I think are really useful. One of them is the 3 good things practice. And we've all heard about gratitude lists, and I do have a gratitude list that I keep every day. So that is another one, but kind of everybody's teaching that and everybody knows about it. But I do a journal page, those leather bound journals, the size of your hand, a little bit bigger than your hand. And I do a whole page every day, a whole page of things that I'm grateful for. And it is so easy because now I have neural pathways to express gratitude and to see all of the blessings in my life. It's amazing. So anyway, you can count that one or not. But apart from that, I do an exercise called 3 good things. 3 good things every day. You can either do 3 good things every day about your life, or if you want to focus on money, 3 good things about your financial life. Okay. So the 3 good things, so you write them down. And then for each one of those 3 good things, you write down, what does this say about you? What does this say about you? So I did this morning, and I said the 3 good things. I spoke at the Unity Church yesterday. I had a wonderful reception after my talk at the Unity Church in Cape Cod yesterday. And then what does that say about me? Well, I'm committed, I'm energetic, and I inspire people. Like that's what it said about me, because I had a great reception from them. And then I had my friend Denise took care of my dog, because it was an hour and a half drive there, an hour and a half drive back. And, I was there for 2 hours. So I was gone most of the day. What is that? What went well? My friend Denise took care of my dog. And then what does that say about me? Well, I've cultivated friendships. I'm able to ask for help when I need support. I have people in my community that support me. That means I'm loving and kind to the people around me. Okay. And then the third one yesterday was I was asked to deliver the eulogy of a dear friend of mine next weekend. And my friend passed, and she has literally hundreds. She's a very well-known, well-loved person, hundreds of friends, but they asked me to deliver her eulogy. And I was incredibly honored. What does that say about me? I have integrity. I'm loving. People acknowledge my leadership. People trust me. So do you see, it's not just capturing the 3 good things, but then it's asking, what does that say about me? Because when you focus on that, it begins over time to change that inner voice that says, you're not that, who do you think you are? And you're not enough, and they're going to find out, and this isn't going to work. And that exercise done repeatedly over time, and you can just choose it. Like say you're having marital problems, 3 good things about your marriage. Say you're having financial problems, 3 good things about your finances. You can do it just general about life, or you can get very specific to an area that you're feeling challenged by. But I promise you, doing that, I think there's some research that shows even doing that 3 days in a week increases self-esteem for 3 months. That's only a 1 week practice. So doing it every day, and again, maybe every day is, on steroids, do it 2 or 3 days a week. But I think having a ritual practice helps you to stay with it. So that's why I say every day. But, having a practice of the 3 good things is one of the things that will raise your vibe.
Jackie, as you speak, and this, because I've never really heard it done this way before, right? I have got a worksheet.
Yeah, I'm making notes too.
I'm making a worksheet for my students. Guess what they're getting, right? They are getting this because
you mean your elementary school students?
My students, yes. Because
that's fantastic. See, if kids learn this, I mean, this will change their neural pathways.
Absolutely.
This will absolutely change their neural pathways.
During COVID is the first time I introduced a gratitude journal where they actually had to write a page
Beautiful.
of gratitude every day, right? To change the mindset, because there was so much fear, just so much fear. And because I had done some research with another one of our guests that we've had on before. And I noticed a huge change in my students as compared to other students within the school. So then I started to build on that. We developed quite the program. in my classroom, but I can see this being amazing, and it's going to work. The
Yeah,
kids
it
are
is
going to
very
love it.
powerful.
First of
It's
all, they're going to hate it because it's,
yeah,
more writing, but
right.
then they're going to love it.
They
They
will.
will.
They will love it. Yeah. No, it's a really powerful exercise. It might be interesting to do that in like to vary it up, to do it in pairs and have one pair tell the other kid three good things about them and then what that says about them. To
Oh, that is so sweet.
Great idea.
Yeah,
to
Yeah.
do
they
it
would
as a
love that.
relational exercise also. Just a thought that just occurred to me.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, but I love that. Yes, please take it and use it with the children. It will be so good for them. Then another thing I do to help people with their financial beliefs, we were talking about money, is I have them call to mind a financial difficulty that they're having in their life right now, if they're having one, but generally people can call one to mind. And even though, I don't really have financial difficulty right now, but we need both a new car and a new front walkway and a new deck, and I want new landscaping. Like, so there's all of these kind of very expensive things that my spouse and I are kind of in the market for right now. And I mean, that's, I don't know, what are we looking at? $200,000, of expenditures around there. So say I don't have financial challenges in my life. I'm paying the bills. I've got a retirement account. I've got a legacy fund for my son. We make enough money. So I don't have challenges. But even if somebody doesn't have a financial challenge, call to mind something that you're like, that's getting your attention. Okay. So call to mind a financial challenge or an area that's getting your attention. And then ask yourself, what does a person have to believe such that that financial challenge exists?
Hmm.
What is the belief that a person would have that would give rise to that financial challenge? So that's a way of unearthing what people's limiting beliefs are.
You
Another
can
one that
see we're taking notes.
yeah, that's great. It's very, very powerful. And then I do exercises with them to help them transform those beliefs.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you really believe that the $200,000, the new walkway, you talked about a deck and
The deck, the rock wall, and then the
right.
car. Yeah.
If you really believe that times are tough, there's
Right.
rampant
That's
inflation
beyond my
right
reach. That's beyond my
now.
reach.
Yeah, we don't know what's going to happen with the price of gas, and like there's all this stuff in the Ukraine going on. Um, that speaks about fear, right? There's a lot of fear there.
Right. So then it comes down to, what do you believe about life? So one of the beliefs I've cultivated about life is that life is always happening for me, not to me, that we live in a benevolent universe. Like, that's just a belief. I wake up in that every day. Like, so I'm like always looking for like what good things are going to happen next. That's my expectancy. It's one of the things I teach about money is you have to live with I call it the 5E formula, living in the energy. That's the first E of enthusiasm, excitement, expectancy, and expansiveness. And most people live in this very constricted energy, not enthusiastic, not excited, not expansive in any way. It's just this constricted, like, ooh, I don't know. And I don't know if I'll be okay. So being able to turn that around. And one of the things I have people do is just spend a week looking for good things everywhere. Looking like, it can either be look for your financial good everywhere, find a dime on the sidewalk and get excited about it. Sometimes I'll do that and I'll take a picture of it and put it up on my Money Vibe Mastery Facebook page. You're like, look at the financial good I brought into my life. Because if you can get excited about the little things, then the big things will come.
Right.
It's because it's all energy and vibration. You want to live with that excitement and enthusiasm.
Well, Jackie, this was absolutely amazing. I can keep on talking with you for hours, and I'm sure we can definitely get you back to go deeper into this. But for now, thank you so much for being with us today. And lastly, can you please tell people how they can connect with you, how they can connect with a Conscious Living Summit?
Yeah, sure. So my website is jackiewoodside.com. And on the menu, there's events for the Conscious Living Summit. And then also on the menu is resources. And on the resources tab, there is a number of free opportunities there. Masterclass replays, a forgiveness ebook, a course. There's actually a free course on my website called the 5E Formula for Your Financial Freedom, the 30-day Money Vibe Challenge. So if you go to my website, you can both sign up for the Conscious Living Summit and also enjoy getting to know me a little bit more from some of those free offerings.
Yeah,
Amazing.
and your guests are incredible. Like, yeah, some of the names.
Marcy Shimoff is on it, and Ken Honda is
Ken
on it.
Honda.
Daryl.
Yeah, he's fun.
Yeah, Ken is
I
wonderful.
saw your YouTube with him.
Oh, you did with Ken?
Yes.
Yeah, I know. I've got to find something else to do with him because we have so much fun together. Yeah, he actually used to live here in the city that I live in Central Massachusetts.
Oh, interesting.
So yeah, so we had this connection when we were talking about that.
Well, thank you so much. We are so honored to have had you here today,
Thank
Jackie,
you.
and
Thank
we
you
look
for having
forward
me.
to seeing you in the summit.
Thank you.
And those of you that are watching, if you haven't subscribed yet, please click subscribe. We want to know that you're here.
Bye-bye now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.